Hey guys, today we are going to be looking at an unsolved case which has not received much publicity in the Western community. This is a famous case in Asia and it originates in Japan. Perhaps because of its disgusting nature and circumstances, this case is quite intriguing. After nearly 40 years, the case still remains unsolved. This is the mysterious cesspit death of Fukushima. Snow drifts down onto the road of Fukushima. It is February 28th, 1989, and the sky was already dim at 6 p.m. Yuki Tanaka, a 23-year-old elementary school teacher, was getting off work in the evening. She felt the need to relieve herself, so she went to the restroom. As she approached the cesspit, she noticed something odd floating in the murky waters below. The cesspit is a type of toilet used in Asia. The cesspit consists of a hole which leads into a U-shaped pipe. The waste is stored in the U-shaped pipe, and periodically it is sucked up by workers and disposed. As she peered down the hole, she saw the silhouette of a black leather shoe. She felt unnerved at first and decided to investigate further. She walked towards the back of the washroom where the drain pipes are exposed. She removed the manhole cover and jumped back in horror at what she saw. A pair of legs were sticking out from the muddy sewage water. Yumi's screams were heard by the ones nearby, and the police were called to the scene. The legs discovered belonged to a man who was dead, and he was stuck in a crouching position within the U-shaped pipe. Due to the awkwardness of the angle and the narrowness of the pipe, it was impossible to squeeze him out without taking the entire pipe out. After using an excavation crane, the pipe was dug up and broken to retrieve the body. The man was positioned in a curled up shape, fully nude, and grasping a neatly folded clothing to his chest. The corpse of the man was identified as Naoyuki Kanno, a 26-year-old young man who was well known for being kind and well-liked by everyone around the town. He had recently just become a sales manager at a local nuclear plant. As the autopsy reports came in, it was determined that he died on the 26th, 2 days before he was discovered. He was last seen by his parents on the 24th, when his son told them that he was going out for a while. At first, the family wasn't worried, but after a couple of days of not hearing back from him, they went and asked locals for help on locating their son. The family was devastated in finding out his fate. The autopsy reports state that he had light bruises around his body, chest compression, and scratches on his elbows, hands, and knees. There were no signs of struggle or anything in his organs, so the cause of death was concluded to be through hypothermia. Final statements given by the police depicted Kanno as a person who partook in acts of voyeurism, which means that he gained pleasure while looking at others in the nude, which resulted in him climbing into the cesspit and then getting stuck, eventually leading to death. However, the community felt insulted by these words, as Kanno was described to be a positive and very sociable person. He loved music and sports, even forming a band in high school. Because of his popularity around town, he was invited to host at many weddings and events, even going as far as helping a village head candidate speak out in public to gather votes for the recent village election, and he had many acts of kindness under his belt. The pipe that Kanno was in had the diameter of 36 centimeters, where his shoulder span was 40 centimeters. Investigators tested if a person was able to crawl in with the given conditions, and indeed it was determined to be almost impossible. Even if he managed to squeeze in the opening, he, being at a height of 170 centimeters, moving into the squatted position he is in would be very difficult. If he was dead before he entered the pipe, there would have been noticeable damage to the body, which he did not have. Coupled by the fact that he was holding his own clothes, this case seemed much more than meets the eye. The temperature around that time in Fukushima was considered to be quite cold, as there were almost 20 centimeters of snow on the ground. Unless Kanno wanted to commit suicide, taking off his clothes would be a terrible idea. But even if he did want to commit suicide, why do it in such a disgusting way? To ruin your own reputation just for the possibility of watching a girl use the washroom. There was only one shoe in the cesspit he was in. The other shoe was also found, but the location was at a water bank located miles away from the school. His car was found in a parking lot next to the dormitories, 200 meters away from the washroom, but the door was unlocked and the keys were left in the car. Being the articulated youth he was, this type of action did not reflect his personality at all. Also, this action indicated that he was not intending to stay at the location for long. 3 months before this incident, Kanno's company experienced a malfunction towards a nuclear reactor. The one who was responsible was a friend of Kanno's and had allegedly committed suicide. However, his wife had just recently given birth and he was given the promotion at the company, so his reasons for committing suicide wouldn't be very believable. The malfunction was also nothing serious, and the employees were prepared after alarms had rang hours prior, so fixing the malfunction was no problem. The public speculated that the company which the two worked for, TEPCO, had them killed to avert the blame. During the time of Kanno's death, the nation of Japan was mourning the death of Emperor Hirohito, and a 4-day vacation started on the 24th. If Kanno really wanted to peek on Tanaka using the washroom, he would have to crawl in the pipe, wait 2 entire days in the cold for her to return back to work. It should be noted that this cesspit is only used by Takana. Being stuck in sewage in the wintertime would definitely not be the smartest idea. What's even wilder is that Kanno and Takana were friends. Just before Kanno's death, he worked with Takana's boyfriend to investigate a person harassing Takana by calling and leaving creepy voicemails. The last given update by Kanno to Takana on the situation was that he basically knew who the guy is, implying he meant to confront him. Word around town stated that Takana fooled around with more than just her boyfriend and may have had a secret relationship with Kanno. Speculation soon fell onto Takana. Why would she look into the cesspit in the first place? The hole is small and the lighting would be very dim. Also, if you saw a single shoe floating within the sewage, would going back and checking in on the drainage pipe be the first thing you do? Another speculation was that Kanno was killed because he knew too much about the recent village election. The spot of being village head was highly desired as this person was able to approve of the construction of a power plant next to the village. The village election was a battle between two sides, Watanabe and Sakuma. Kanno partook in speaking out for Watanabe, but suddenly refused to help out on the last day of the conferences, which was February 18th. He instead went to a friend's house and stated his reason for not attending the conference was that it was snowing and he didn't want to go. The election resulted in Watanabe's substantial victory, but Kanno's actions were just too odd. Why did he leave in such a crucial moment? Perhaps he was in control of some information which the village head did not want to be publicized. With so many strange circumstances, what could be the final truth? I think we should take a look at the man who was harassing Takana. Let's just speculate that Kanno and Takana had a relationship that was more than just friends. He knew that the harassment was affecting her emotionally and tried his best to stop this individual. He figured out who the individual was without concrete evidence and confronted him through phone. As they talked, things began to heat up and they decided to confront each other at a place they were both familiar with, the school that Takana worked in. Everybody was on vacation at this time, so the only reason Kanno went to the school is to meet someone. Since nobody was around, their confrontation would be private. Kanno arrived in the parking lot where the man was awaiting him and he parked his car. As he stepped outside the car, several other men came out and suddenly seized Kanno. They took his keys and threw it back into the car. Kanno was brought to his knees and forced to confide to the thugs. Kanno, being the proud individual, didn't give in to the threats of the thugs. They became irritated, so they discussed with each other on how Kanno should be punished. They thought it would be funny if Kanno was stuck in the toilets of his secret lover, and that is exactly what they did. They knew that Kanno would be ashamed if he was found in such a condition by the public, and his reputation would never recover. They escorted him at the pipe and forced him to take off all of his clothing. Under the pressure of several men, Kanno had no choice but to do as he was told. As he crawled into the pipe, the men noticed how cold it was and decided that on the off chance Kanno dies, they would be labeled as murderers, so they threw in his clothing down with him. But as they realized that Kanno was actually stuck, the possibility of him dying just grew much more. They saw Kanno's shoes and threw one down the pipe, and the other was taken to the water banks so that if it was found, it would be a distraction to avert the attention of the investigators. Kanno was left in the cesspit, alone and hoping for someone to come by, but eventually no one did. And so concluded the life of the prospecting youth. Thank you all again, and I will see you again in the next video.